I'm Mike AD, and welcome to the Delta League Podcast, Week 16. And we are but 3 weeks away from the Wheel of Fire tournament. Now, let's get on to the action. And we're going to start on Monday night, where Seattle is hosting Dallas and Washington. And in this one, Seattle wins it. Seattle 31, Washington 23, Dallas 12. With this win, the Pirates tied the record for the most number of wins in a single season, with 13. Now, they also break the record for the most number of points in a single season, now with 56. Now, Pirates star Rob Donoff did not play in this game either this week because he's still down with a mystery illness that has sidelined him for the last 14 days. Brutal. Now, Washington player Dave Scarry, in addition to picking up a yellow card, partially tore his Achilles in this match. He'll be out 3 weeks, which means his season is over. Just another nail in the coffin of Washington's playoff hopes this season. Now, Scarry is also the latest recipient of the 4 yellow card club, which means he'll be out for the season opener next year, as suspensions carry over in Delta League. Now, there was a celebrity sighting in this game as Dallas native Usher took on the festivities as his hometown team took a thrashing for the 10th time. I bet he wasn't saying, yeah, after this one. For Seattle, it was Marnie Johnstone with 8 goals. For Dallas, it was Bernie Tully with 7 goals and Nathaniel Mansfield with 10 blocks. For Washington, it was Sebastiano Guarnieri with 5 goals. And in the end of this one, Seattle picks up the 4 points. Washington, 2 points. Dallas, nothing again. Now, let's move on to Wednesday, where Toronto is hosting Phoenix and Miami. And Phoenix stays hot. Phoenix wins. Phoenix 34, Miami 27, Toronto 19. Now, Miami's Bob Nyhan picked up a yellow card in this one for the usual skirting of the rules. Regardless of this game was very civil. Now, on Sunday, Toronto captain Dan Kamen broke his neck. He will make a full recovery, but his battle with near paralysis is not over. It's only just beginning. Now, there were some rumors this week that the Phoenix Rising may relocate. I think the only person excited about this prospect is Curly Barnabani, who has his own set of industrial cooling fans courtside. Now, it's no secret he hates Phoenix. This rumor that the team was leaving the city stemmed from another report that the Phoenix team was changing venues and will be playing out of another stadium next year. That is true. The rumors that the team is moving to OKC are bullshit. Now, Toronto mascot Chadwick Chow, also known as Mr. Tower, mysteriously collapsed during this game and had to be stretchered out. Medical is calling it heat exhaustion, but we all know it is more likely that he got too hot from his late-night shenanigans, dry humping statues and random fans, to the point where he went into a hyperglycemic coma. Now, for Toronto, it was Gabriella Davignon with 6 goals. For Phoenix, it was Curly Barnabani with 10 goals. And for Miami, it was Kipper Grimmett and Hardcore Corbin Hargevend with 5 goals each. And in the end of this one, Phoenix picks up the 4 points. Miami, 2 points. Toronto, again, nothing. Now, let's move on to the Saturday matinee game where New York is hosting Chicago and Salt Lake City. And in just a little bit of an upset, New York knocks off Chicago. New York 49, Chicago 41, Salt Lake City 15. Now, there were some reports that it was very cold in the arena. But it was just the Salt Lake City team who has been perpetually cold all season long. Now, for New York, it was Luke Brownlee with 10 goals and Rock Weinstein with 13 goals. For Chicago, it was Evan Parawal with 11 goals, and Paul Marullo and Oscar Zenga with 5 blocks each. For Salt Lake City, it was Alexander Harris with 5 goals. Happy that somebody mustered something. Now, in the end of this one, New York picks up the 4 points, Chicago 2 points, Salt Lake City nothing once more. Now, off to Philadelphia, where the Shred are hosting Memphis and Detroit. And in this one, Memphis continues to stay hot as well. Memphis 31, Philadelphia 22, Detroit 12. Now, this game was plagued by a fat female streaker. For some reason, security could not keep up with her as she managed to evade them for the entire second period. Eventually, she ran out of gas and needed an oxygen mask before she was ejected. Now, fans began to walk out of this game before the final buzzer, and some would say the performance of the Shred has been so putrid that the fans revolted at their performance. However, this is not the cause. There was a sewage backup in the stadium which caused an odor of human fecal matter that spread all over the lower bowl, causing fans to get the hell out of there. Talk about a shitty situation. Now, for Philadelphia, it was Tully Sykes with 6 goals and Ariel Vignola with 8 blocks. For Memphis, it was Alan Adam with 7 blocks and William Miller with 8 goals. And for Detroit, it was Lucius Floyd with 6 blocks. And in the end of this one, Memphis picks up the 4 points. Philly, 2 points. Detroit, nothing. Now, let's move on to Boston, where the Revolution are hosting Denver and Montreal. And in a close one, Denver wins it. Denver 38, Montreal 36, Boston 19. Now, Montreal players Nate Taft and Stefan Grice got yellow carded in this match, and this stemmed directly from another incident in which Revolution player Konstantinos Papadopoulos took down Gus Partenza and he fell hard. He was ushered from the court and did not return. This caused Taft and Grice to go after Papadopoulos, cashing in their yellow card receipts, which in turn caused Dave Toro to get involved, and in the end, 4 players are charged with various offenses. Now, strange story out of Denver this week as Sky superstar Poo Poo McCarthy came out and said he'd like to be traded. He's part of the reason why the team is as good as it is. And this team has a definite chance to win the Wheel of Fire this year, legitimately. Sometimes winning isn't enough, though. Now, this game was incredibly hot, according to Boston players. Nobody else seemed to complain except the team that was getting trounced. Now, reports say that suspended Denver player Laura Greco left courtside before this game was over. The media tried to make a hullabaloo about this, but she is suspended. The word is she had a personal issue to attend to. There is no story here. Now, for Boston, it was Hobo Mickelson with 7 goals. For Denver, it was Damian Ellis with 14 blocks. And Cyrus Holleran with 10 goals. For Montreal, it was Stefan Greiss with 12 goals. And in the end of this one, Denver picks up the 4 points. Montreal, 2 points. Boston, nothing once more. Now, let's move on to Vancouver, who is hosting LA and Atlanta, and Vancouver continues to win. Vancouver 23, LA 21, Atlanta 9. Now, LA player Jerome Jalbert has been caught in a gambling scandal, and he was found to be gambling against his own team. His career is finished. Now, and Orcas captain Jonathan Monopoly has declared bankruptcy. His family restaurant has tragically failed, and after the death of his mother, who was the beating heart of the restaurant, he spent the last year or so trying to keep it alive, but to no avail, to huge personal cost. We wish Mr. Monopoly all the best and hope his next Delta League contract is a big one. Now, for Vancouver, it was Bernie Pukila and Kofi Dominguez with 5 goals each. For LA, it was Ben Breitbart with 7 goals. And for Atlanta, nobody mustered jack shit. And in the end, Vancouver picks up the 4 points. LA, 2 points. Atlanta, nothing again. Now, let's move on to the standings. At the top, we have Seattle, 56 points. Chicago, 50 points. Detroit, 43 points. Memphis and Washington, 41 points each. Denver, 37 points. New York, 36 points. Montreal, 33 points. Miami, 31 points. And the playoff line is drawn there. Now, just under, we got Philadelphia, 30 points. Toronto, 29 points. Vancouver, 26 points. Phoenix, 25 points. LA, 24 points. Boston, 17 points. Atlanta and Dallas, 8 points each. And Salt Lake City, 7 points. Memphis, with their win, clinch a spot in the tournament. Even Washington clinches their spot in the postseason for the 2nd straight year. Now, Detroit clinches their spot in the Wheel of Fire tournament, even though they lost. Due to their loss, Boston is eliminated from playoff contention, and that leaves 9 teams vying for the final 4 spots in the tournament. If the playoffs were today, Seattle would play Memphis and Miami, and neither team deserves that fate. Chicago would play Washington and Montreal, and Detroit would play New York and Denver. Here are the goal leaders after Week 16. We got a new leader at the top, Rock Weinstein. New York, 103 goals. Rob Donoff, Seattle, 101 goals. Isaac Parker Johnson, 84 goals. Laurie Moss, James Korn, Stefan Greiss, 83 goals each. Evan Parawall, Chicago, 82 goals. Larry McMaster, Denver, 75 goals. We got Venus Pilar, Chicago, 74 goals. Mohamed Carnasale, New York, 71 goals. Star Palmer, Gus Partenza, 70 goals each. The offensive player of the week is once again Rock Weinstein from New York with 13 goals. Now, let's move on to the block leaders after week 16. At the top, Bernie Tully, Dallas, 81 blocks. Vlad Milat, Seattle, 78 blocks. Alan Adam, Memphis, 74 blocks. Cyrus Holleran, 70 blocks. Jackson Truman, Phoenix, 69 blocks. Anatoly Schaefer, Dallas, 61 blocks. Emmett Ruan, Harlequin Butcher, 60 blocks each. Coffee Dominguez, Vancouver, 59 blocks. Frank Viano, Seattle, 59 blocks. Romeo DeRosa, Vancouver, 56 blocks. Corey Vignali, Dallas, 55 blocks. Now, the defensive player of the week is Damian Ellis from Denver with 14 blocks. Now, here are the leaders in GXB rating after week 16. At the top, Vlad Milat, 50-70. Rob Donoff, 42-42. Laurie Moss and James Korn, 41-50 each. Bernie Tully, Dallas, 35-64. Chip Chiozzi, 32-16. Rhino Montalban, 31-72. Larry McMaster, 2700. Mohamed Carnasale, 26-98. Gus Partenza, 26-60. Evan Parawall, 26-24. And Star Palmer, 25-90. Now, let's move on to the league news, but before we do that, we gotta drink some morning brew. It's not the morning, but I don't give a fuck. Alright, the league news. Dan Kamen broke his neck this week, and reports are he fell off a roof while reshingling his house. He was lucky he didn't receive fatal injuries from a fall that was as high as that. But a car broke his awkward fall from the house. I think it's about the 5th or 6th player this year, and thankfully only 2 players have died. Now, that protective equipment that they're planning on implementing for next season, I think they should have to wear it 24/7 because the number of fatal injuries sustained by Delta players while they're on vacation is absolutely uncanny. Now, Jerome Jalbert was caught this week in a federal investigation into sports betting and found out that he had been gambling against his own team. If you gamble and you bet on your own team, that sounds like an extra incentive to win. But when you gamble and you bet on your team to lose, that is an inherent conflict of interest and crosses the line on so many levels. Now, Jalbert is the second player to be caught in this sort of gambling scandal. Remember, Argenta Mignani of Detroit was caught earlier in the season betting against her own team, and she was handed the lifetime pink slip. Now, Jalbert's brother, Shaquan Jalbert, said, my brother, he bet against his own team because they had so many multiple injuries and suspensions, and at the time he knew they were going to lose the games, so he saw nothing wrong with making a few anonymous bets with a bookie, but my bro got caught. I feel bad. I told him he'd taken a big risk. Now everything is finished. It's a bad situation, but we make the bed we lay in. Indeed. Now, bad news for Montreal coming out of this game as rookie sensation Gus Partenza busted his clavicle, and everybody thought the guy was indestructible Well, as it appears, he's human, and it's a 10-week recovery, which means Montreal's hopes to make the postseason look seriously in jeopardy. Now, word on the Pooh McCarthy trade request. Apparently, it's not a personnel issue. He said that we're going to go to war, and I respect all these guys. It's personal, and I don't want to get into it. I'm looking at this guy, Pooh McCarthy. Wow, is he going to fetch a big return on the open market? And the name that keeps coming to mind is Curly Barnabani. I mean, this guy is super talented, but he hates the warm weather in Phoenix, and a trade to Denver looks like a perfect fit. Now, for the Sky, it's to another division as well, so you won't have to face him as often, and this guy could fetch a few draft picks as well. So for me, this is not an impossible situation for the Sky. It's an opportunity. Now, there were a few stadium collapses this week. Thankfully, nobody was there at the time. The first collapse was in Denver, where a piece of the roof collapsed and fell onto the court area. Thankfully, nobody was there, but the damage will take some time to fix, and unfortunately for Denver, their last 2 regular season games are at home. So they need to find an alternative venue as soon as possible. We'll update you with news as it becomes available. Now, the stadium in Washington also collapsed, but in this case, a section of the elevated seating broke free and the entire section has to be torn down and rebuilt. Now, this is at least a few months worth of repairs. The good news is Washington has only one home game remaining, and that game is in 2 weeks' time. The switch to another venue will be easy because Washington's farm team, the DC Electric, is right down the road. Now, on to the mailbag. Matty V. What are each team's chances of making the Wheel of Fire tournament? Delta League has a point allocation system that allows for extreme parity in the standings. That's right, Matty. And we'll start with New York and Denver. They sit about 6 and 7 points ahead of Philadelphia, respectively. Denver needs a second place finish here, and they're over the line. But it all depends on what Philadelphia does, and how fitting that Philly plays New York and Miami next week. And at the same time, Toronto plays Denver and Washington. Miami and Philly are playing for their lives. And if New York wins, as I think they will, whoever finishes second has a considerable advantage going into Week 18. I think Toronto's time is short here, and Denver should clinch no problem. Then there's the logjam in teams between 8th and 14th place, and teams like LA, Phoenix, Vancouver have to run the table and pray that Miami and Montreal lose. That's why picking up 2 points here and there can be instrumental. This year, Miami has set the record for the most number of second place finishes with 10, and they have 2 first place ties as well. And the funny part, they could still miss the playoffs under the right conditions. If Miami finishes second in their next game, they will effectively eliminate LA. There are dozens of scenarios here that I could spend an hour explaining, but it's all up to Miami and Montreal. And isn't it fitting that the end of the season, in Week 18, Montreal plays Miami and Salt Lake City, and it could literally be for the final playoff spot. Set your calendar. Now, Big Tory. I think that enough of the season has expired that we can make some predictions about who the winners of the Delta League annual awards are going to be. Yeah, we only got about 2 weeks to go, but I'll give you my opinion on this. The Leadership Award, that's going to be Lori Moss of Seattle Nobody sets the example as a dominant leader of a team like Laurie Moss. Now, Offensive Player of the Year, right now it's Rock Weinstein, but Rob Donoff has been out for 2 weeks now with a mystery illness. I don't see anyone else capable of hopping over these two. It's going to be a hot dash to the finish. Defensive Player of the Year. Right now there's 2 players who are in the running. Seattle's Vlad Millet and Bernie Tully of Dallas. Tully's been on such a roll that I think these last 2 weeks will result in him winning the award. Now, Outstanding Player of the Year. It's Laurie Moss of Seattle. She's incredibly dominant on both sides of the ball, and she's one of the primary reasons that Seattle is so incredible this year. Now, MVP. Delta League actually takes the idea of what a most valuable player means and rewards players who indeed mean everything to their respective teams. You know that saying that it's the player that the team can't live without. And there's a few players in the running this year. One of them is Romeo DeRosa from Vancouver. LA, Marty Hagar, just instrumental in dragging that team through hell. We got Jackson Truman in Phoenix, a tremendous defensive player, and if the Rising defy the odds and make the playoffs, he's definitely in contention. Then we have the Messiah, Stefan Grice. He has a real mountain to climb now that Gus Partenza's gone for the year, so if they get in, Grice is the primary reason. And of course, Rhino Montalban from New York. This guy has quietly put up some devastatingly intimidating numbers. Now, just an incredibly well-rounded player. Now, Coach of the Year. Based upon what the experts were predicting about this season, Memphis is in a godly position. And based on their roster, I can only conclude the answer is due to coaching. That's why I think Ulrich Schultz of Memphis will win his 2nd straight Coach of the Year award. Now, Rookie of the Year. No contest. James Korn of Seattle. Hands down. This guy has dominated both sides of the ball. Nobody except Venus Pilar is even close. Now, Unsung Player of the Year award. Jude Tesla, Atlanta. I mean, you look at his numbers and his playing time, and they're astronomically disproportionate compared to other players. Which is why Atlanta got out of their way to get the guy. So, here are our games and predictions for Week 17. We'll start on Monday with LA hosting Vancouver and Detroit. And Detroit is into the postseason, and they're playing like these games don't count. And if they're not careful, they're going to fall to 4th place. And you know what that means. Certain death in the postseason. LA is hobbled, almost out of gas, and I think Vancouver is going to win this freaking game. Even though in the end, their chances of a playoff berth hang by a virtual thread. Now, on to Wednesday's matinee game, where Atlanta hosts Boston and Memphis. Wow. This is a gift and a half for a team that's worked his ass off. Memphis should mop the floor with these two and in the process gain that spot in the Wheel of Fire tournament. Now, on to Saturday's matinee game, and it's Dallas hosting Seattle and Montreal. And Montreal is one of the 2 teams that beat Seattle this season, but it isn't the same team as it was that many weeks back. They're down a key contributor in Gus Partenza. And in the presence of Dallas here, it makes certain that Montreal gets that 2 points and creeps ever closer to their first playoff berth. Now, on to Saturday's evening game, where Miami hosts New York and Philadelphia. I think New York is going to win this game. But Miami and Philly are fighting like mad to get one of those spots, and we're going to see who wants it more. This is the game of the week, and nobody would have said that last year. Now, on to Denver, where the Sky are hosting Toronto and Washington. And Denver needs just 2 points, and they clinch a spot in the tournament. Washington has already clinched their spot, and Toronto needs to win here. The Towers just lost their captain for the year. This team is tired. This team is miserable, and they're gonna lose. Denver wins. Now, on to the last game of the week, and it's Salt Lake City hosting Phoenix and Chicago. Enough playing around here. Phoenix needs to win this game or their history. And guess what? They won't. Chicago wins. Phoenix is eliminated, and Salt Lake City stinks the joint out. 3 things that are certain in this life. That's it for this week in the Delta League podcast. Join us next week where the action continues and never stops.